Sports Vodcast. I'm Bobby Mendez, alongside, as always, Haley Wilson and Coach Robert Villafranca. This is Season 2, Episode 2. We welcome you. We're going to talk about what's happening in volleyball. That's District 28 5A. Then we'll chat a little bit about some tennis and finish off with some football in District 14 5A Division 2. But before we do that, we want to make sure we thank our sponsors for making this coverage possible. We want to thank Martinez and Associates, Rufio, Texas Revolution Youth Football and Cheer, Proper Realty with Vanessa G. Medina, Brooks, Rock and G Grill, Model Mortgage Plus, Superior Tax Service, Live from the South Side, and J-Rod Video Productions. So, Haley, Coach, glad to be back. This week is a fast week. Last week we finished on a Friday. But we're back here on this evening with 2 more games left to go on our RC Audio sports calendar. And then you and I, Coach, of course, got some Saturday night football as well. So it's been a busy week. So we got a lot of crunching in to do in this time. How's you guys' week?
Busy.
Yeah, busy, but excited. I feel like the season's ramped up so fast. Like you had said, got 2 games back to back. Couple of weeks we'll have volleyball and football, multiple football games in a week. So we had no ramp up time. We're going 100 miles an hour already.
Yeah, and we're still in volleyball action where still some tournaments being played. Districts coming right up. Either one of you, Haley or Coach, tell us a little bit about what's happened this past week in volleyball.
Bob, this past week was the last weekend of tournament play for our volleyball teams, which means that district play is coming up real soon. Some of the districts around town have already started their district games. For 28 5A, it's September 13th. And we'll stream a game on September 13th, Harlandale at South San. So that'll be the start of our volleyball streaming this year. But tournament weekend this past weekend, a lot of action. We had teams at the Seguin tournament. We had Medina Valley was at Hill Country. South San was over at Pearsall, and Southwest ISD hosted their tournament. So of course, Legacy and Southwest were at that one. But it's really shaping up to be a very competitive year. All of our teams did well at their respective tournaments. Harlandale claimed the consolation, the gold bracket consolation trophy over there at Seguin, and had some real nice games. Southside played very tough against Veterans Memorial. They weren't able to get that win at the tournament. And of course, McCullum was there too, and McCullum is shaping up to compete for one of those top 4 spots. Medina Valley was at the Hill Country tournament. They swept Saturday, had 4 big wins on Saturday, culminating with one against Sotomayor High School, the brand new high school in town. And Sotomayor they're ready to go. It's year 1, but they are ready to go. And that was a big win for Medina Valley, showing that they're right back where we expect the Panthers to be. South San won the tournament at Pearsall. Ariana Gomez was named all tournament at that team. South San doing some great things already. They have 19 wins. We haven't even started district play. They can, 20 wins for volleyball is the threshold. And, threshold that you measure teams by. How many 20-win seasons do you have? And South San has 19 wins already. Southwest not too far behind them, 18 wins for the Dragons. And speaking of the Dragons, Deuce is wild for the Dragons. They came in second in all 3 tournaments that they played in, at the Harlandale tournament, the SAISD tournament, and then at their own tournament. So Southwest didn't make the playoffs last year in 28 5A, but look out. I've got them in my top 4.
Haley, what's coming up on Tuesday for volleyball, or what's coming up this week?
Yeah, so we had a couple of matches yesterday. I wasn't able to pull all the scores yet because I know, people don't always post scores right away. But Southwest Legacy, it was pretty interesting. They defeated Kennedy 3-0, and each set that they played in, they only won by 2 points. So real narrow margin of victory across the board. And again, kind of goes to echo what Coach said, and that it's going to be a really competitive season, season for everyone. Coming up on Friday, kind of along with football, there's a couple of 28 5A matches that we're going to be keeping our eyes on. Burbank at Lanier, Alamo Heights at Jefferson, MacArthur at Sam Houston, Highlands versus Edison. So we got some exciting stuff coming up this week. And I know, Coach, we also had a player to watch that got a Express News game ball this week. If I'm not, if
Yeah,
I'm
we did. McCullum's Layla Sanchez for her work against Del Rio. She had 53 digs in one match against Del Rio. So Layla Sanchez and San Antonio Express News game ball for young Miss Layla, and congratulations to her on that. You know, we had also this Tuesday a little just an interesting point. 28-5A was 3-0 against Judson ISD schools on Tuesday. So Veterans Memorial, Judson, and Wagner all felt the sword of 28-5A this past week. I don't know how common that is, but that's a nice little feather in the cap of 28-5A volleyball to have swept those three very respectable teams that play for Judson ISD.
Yeah, all those teams always super competitive. And you even mentioned Coach Sotomayor, the newest school involved here. It just seems like anytime the Northside ISD or these Judson schools, they put any school up there, those coaches have those players ready to go from the get-go. It's not a traditional growing pains for most of these schools. They're usually up and running and ready to go pretty quickly.
Well, we saw that happen with Harlan. You know, Harlan had a nice little playoff run in their first years. And then Sotomayor here. Just a little side note, as we cover 28-5A, this, you know, Harlandale sports, it's Ninfa Garcia was a volleyball coach at Harlandale High School in the 70s and the 80s. It's her granddaughter. Sarah Cardenas, who is the head coach of the Sotomayor program. And her uncle is Oscar Cardenas. Her dad is Javi Cardenas. And both those guys were coaches at Harlandale High School. So anyway, little connection, little 28-5A connection for young Sarah.
All right, well, let's move on now to some tennis. And I like to take this transition into tennis and let you know that this segment is being brought to you by Rufio. If you're looking to save some money on your energy bill, hey, why not try some solar? Give Rufio a call. They're here in San Antonio, and they can give you a quote. Also, ask about some kind of tax rebates when you call them up.
Well, Bob, you mentioned tennis, and we do have a little tennis news. I understand that Ryan Quiroz, a senior over at Medina Valley, had a real strong outing against the Wynn Mavericks in their first district match. And this past week was the first district match for 28-5A tennis. Also, Harlandale opened up with a victory over South San. Harlandale's had a little bit of a dry spell, and that was the first team tennis victory for Harlandale in about 2 years. So congratulations to the Indians getting one in the win column.
Coach Landry still the head coach for the tennis team?
Coach Landry is still the head coach and doing a good job over there, recruiting, rounding them up.
You know, Coach Landry, I graduated in 1998. Coach Landry was probably in his second, third year, I think, about that. So he's probably one of the most tenured coaches, I'm going to say, at Harlandale right now.
Yes, he is. I believe he is the most tenured coach.
I'm gonna have to say
it's funny how that it's funny how that turns. Back in the 90s, I was at Harlandale, and he was one of the young guys, and and so now he's that clock keeps ticking, man. Time marches on.
And just a little side note in tennis, Coach Landry and Joey Mejia, our very own statistician. Joey, all district tennis player.
There you go.
Back in the day, so. More connection on that. Let's get into some football. And with football, we want to present our newest sponsor as well. We mentioned Rufio, but now we have Texas Revolution, Texas's best football organization for youth football and cheer. They are led by Gabe Mora, who is also a former Harlandale Indian. Give Gabe a call. We'll put that number here on your screen. Give him a call. You have a child that wants to get into whether it's flag football, tackle football, and even cheer. They'll put you and set you up in the right way. So make sure you give Gabe Mora a call. That's Texas Revolution Youth Football and Cheer. So let's dig into some football, Coach.
Yeah, I'll get us started with a little bit of football. Obviously, last week was a really exciting week. We had a full schedule of a bunch of season openers, all of them non-district, teams kind of getting warmed up, getting into the swing of it. Kind of two of the games I wanted to highlight, obviously, the one that we covered, McCollum at South San, that ended up being a really exciting game. We'll get into it in a little bit. But Vets Memorial, Harlandale, Vets Memorial ended up running away with a pretty big win, 53-7. But wanted to, of course, highlight someone that we talked a lot about on our broadcast last year and even on our vodcast. And that was James Peoples, who ended up snagging the San Antonio Express News Offensive Player of the Week during the game last week. So lots of good matchups. I think everyone kind of probably was able to shake out the nerves a little bit. But the kind of two games that we're going to be streaming and covering this week get started on Thursday, where we're going to be over at Alamo Stadium, right around the corner from, I know, me and you, Bobby, where we're going to be covering Harlandale at Edison for the first district matchup of the year. Before I get into some of the notes for the game, I'm curious. I know last podcast we talked a little bit about some new rivalries kind of getting brought back up with the district realignments. I'm not from San Antonio, so I don't know how this water runs deep or how this blood runs deep, but I guess what kind of rivalries should we have our eyes on for this upcoming season?
Well, Harlandale High School opened up or has started competing in football in 1924. So that gives you an idea. And the oldest schools in SAISD, Brack and Jefferson, date back about that far. Some of these rivalries go back to the 40s, but even Burbank. I think Burbank is the newest school in SAISD. That was I believe they opened up in the late 50s. So you're talking about some half-century, 70-year-old rivalries. Some of these guys, date back. They've got the kids that are playing have dads that played on these teams and granddads that played on these teams, and very likely great granddads as well. So it's a long and storied rivalry. There's some games. There are some games that, as we go through the year, I'd like to bring up some of the storied games between these teams. But we're going to get started this week again. This Thursday starts district play. I wanted to come back to your point, Haley. James Peoples, and that guy's got to like Memorial Stadium. He was our player of the week twice last year. He was our player of the game twice last year against Harlandale and McCollum. He gained over 200 yards in the season opener against Harlandale this past Friday. So I'm sure he looks on his schedule and he looks for games at Memorial Stadium because that's been a very good spot for him.
I'm sure he's got good spots all around town.
He's got a few. It's a good point. I'm sure he's got a few stadiums, but we've called a couple of his outstanding games. A couple of points also before we get on to our schedule coming up. Jefferson beat Lytle this past week. 27-0 was that score. Jefferson couldn't get one in the win column last year, so they start the year off with one in the win column. So that's got to be a relief for the Jefferson Mustangs team and their fan base. I was looking at some of the games that were played. Burbank, a statement, 24-7 over Southwest Legacy. Southwest Legacy now is expecting them to get some traction and become very competitive in this area. But Burbank, again, I expected that to be a little closer. 24-7. That was a good game. That was a little bit of an eye opener for me. And of course, you said McCollum South San. We covered that. How about Luke Landa, an 87-yard kickoff return? And Coach Klon has got to be thrilled to see that kind of speed and that kind of playmaking ability on his team. But Luke Landa with a 87-yard kickoff return last week. So it was
definitely a great to see the McCollum Cowboys special teams doing well. That was a great 87-yard touchdown run there, a kickoff return by Landa. But overall, Coach, I feel like the McCollum Cowboys had a really good opportunity in this game. I feel that they're young. We know that they've graduated many seniors. I think it was 22 if I remember off the top of my head. But if you're Coach Klein, yeah, you're a little upset at all the mistakes that were made, but these guys are now coming in to where they haven't had these opportunities to play. But that was a close enough game. They gave themselves an opportunity to win, and Southside just made some plays at the end, and they pulled it out. But it's great to see the McCollum Cowboys competing again. It's really great to see what they're doing with quarterback. I believe it was Justin Rodriguez. We talked about this, Haley, throughout the game, that coach didn't go right to him, didn't expect a lot from him in the beginning, but he was able to really catch a rhythm there in the second half.
He's a lefty, and I saw him extend a few plays. And, I saw him extend a few plays, and that's all, an offensive coordinator loves that. And the thing that really struck me about young Justin is that he extends plays and he stays engaged in the passing game. It's not as if he's rushed out of the pocket and then he tucks and runs right away. I mean, he comes out of the pocket, he'll drift to his left. He's a lefty, he'll drift to his left mostly, but he's still, he stays engaged in that passing game and he's looking downfield. So that makes it very dangerous. You put pressure on defensive backs to cover for 4 or 5, 6 seconds into a play. That makes it tough.
Yeah. And one of the other pieces I loved about that game that we also talked about on air, Bobby, was just the Cowboys defense. Like, they held that team in there the entire game. McCollum went down, I think it was to a quick 14-0 deficit early on in the game. And minus what was on the scoreboard, they never really felt fully out of it. The Cowboys defense was like locked in, kept it really close, even had a massive fumble return all the way down to the 1 yard line, almost for a touchdown. Right. And so they had a defensive stand at the 1 yard line. I mean, they really put a lot of effort in, and that game was so close because of the Cowboy defense.
I was talking to some coaches, some friends of mine after this weekend, and it was really humid. The temperature dropped just a little bit, so we weren't in real high temperatures, but it was really humid. And it seems like just across the board, teams were having some difficulty, with conditioning and so forth. And we saw that a little bit in our game, but I mean, God, that was a tough game to play. There was we saw that fumble return you were talking about. If it would have scored if the field was 97 yards long.
Yeah.
But, man, my heart just goes out to, and it's tough to condition. I mean,
no, but
look back
Coach,
all week long.
How about the decision to pick it up? Because so from the booth, you could look at him. He literally contemplated, do I just jump on this or do I just pick it up and run? Because he did not know what he wanted to do for like maybe half a second. But, because as linemen, we're taught just fall on it, because you're not going to hang on to the football. But kudos to him for hanging on to the football and getting as close as he did to the end zone.
I was producing, so I was in. Cesar Mendez was our cameraman this past Friday. And so I was in his ear, and he picked up the ball, and I think everybody in the stadium was expecting a whistle, and I went right to Cesar, hold the camera, because that play went. I think everybody in the stadium was expecting a whistle right there at that fumble, but he scooped and score, man, and your defense scoop and score.
That was great. Yep. That was a great moment.
I love it. So yeah, McCollum is going to be playing Highlands this week again. Both Highlands and McCollum coming off of losses in the first week, so looking to kind of avenge that first game, hopefully get out some of those first game jitters. I know Highlands was very competitive last year. They went 6-2 in district, led by senior quarterback Joseph Clay, who's been getting some recognition around the city. I saw he was at the Trinity University prospect camp a couple of weeks ago. They have offensive firepower from Willie Gaskin, who brought 175 yards of offensive firepower to the table last week. So it's going to be a good game. Highlands versus McCollum, which we'll be covering on Friday. And then to kind of tee it up or cap it off, again, we're going to be streaming Harlandale at Edison on Thursday this week. Coach, what do you think kind of after, the performance last week, lost to Vets Memorial, very talented team? I guess, what do you think Harlandale's mindset is coming into the game on Thursday?
Well, I think it was very easy for them to just flip that one into history, let bygones be bygones, and focus. Probably the best thing that you could want after a game like that is to start district the next week because it's like, this game is behind us. It's not going to matter. It's not going to affect whether we get into the playoffs or not. It gets serious. And so I think it's starting district after a week like that, after a loss like that, makes it a little bit easier to let bygones be bygones. And I'm really looking forward to this. Is our first RC Audio Sports video stream from Alamo Stadium. We did some audio streaming back in the day before video, but this is the first time that we're going to video stream from there. And Alamo Stadium, good Lord, what a beautiful place. It is the cathedral. It's the temple, the Mecca, whatever you want to call it, of San Antonio sports stadiums. I just really love watching games there. Back in the day, I enjoyed playing games there, and I've always enjoyed streaming games from there. It's just, it's just a great place to experience a ball game. The Alamo Dome is great. It's wonderful to have a stadium like that in town, and it gets playoff games and it gets big games. But I'm old school. I wish that we would come back to Alamo Stadium and get some of those playoff games there. And it's just it's hard for a coach to let the elements come back into play, and if you're indoors, it's a little safer. But Alamo City, I can't wait. Edison will host Harlandale. That's a big game. I don't know if this is it's a 9-game district season, so it's too early for Kent. I mean, it's too early for must wins. But Edison and Harlandale both expecting to be among the top 4, so it's a big game. They may not. I don't know if it's one of those games where I'm not sure there's room enough for both of them. So this game could have some lingering consequences as we move through the season. Another big one before we run out of time here is Brack and Alamo Heights. Brack is, a lot of teams think that Brack is up. Is one of the top 2 teams in the district. There's people that are putting them there, and Alamo Heights is probably a consensus favorite among watchers of this district. But that's a big game, Brack and Alamo Heights. So I'm looking forward to seeing the outcome of that. See, that's going to be a big test to see just what kind of team Brack is putting on the field this year. Haley, of all the games on this weekend slate, which one is drawing your interest? Which one are you going to be paying a special attention to?
That is a tough one. I'm going to have to go with Harlandale at Edison. I've lived a couple minutes away from Alamo Stadium for the last, no joke, 7 years, and I've never been to Alamo Stadium.
You'll love it. You'll love it.
I've parked in the parking lot 100, 200, 300 times because of Trinity University where I went to school, but I've never had the chance to actually go in there. So for the quality of football, of course, alone, but mainly for the stadium. Now that you just got me all riled up about the stadium, that's definitely the one I'm looking most forward to this week.
I'm excited for you, Haley, because it is certainly probably one of the best views that we're going to have in all of high school sports in San Antonio, because we're looking out. You got the view of the skyline over to one side, and it's just an amazing view. I get excited every time we go there. I'm excited for that game as well. I'm excited for also the Highlands McCollum game. Highlands is actually the school Caesar goes to, who's their camera guy. So he's going to be able to work that game. And also know Coach Chris Castillo, who's done a really good job with Highlands. Took over the program last year.
2 years, 2 playoff teams.
Yeah, he took over a couple of years ago. He came from Dallas area, and he rebuilt that program over in Dallas. He's just a really good coach. He does really well with connecting with the kids, and they really respond to him. So I'm looking forward to finally get to watch Coach Castillo live in action. So I'm excited for that game as well. Hey, you've been watching our Vodcast. This was our episode number 2 of season number 2. We're very thankful that you've joined us, and we want to make sure you joining us on Thursday and Friday. Again, we want to thank all of our sponsors. And for Haley Wilson, Coach Robert Villafranca, I am Bobby Mendez. We'll see you on the YouTube.